You guys are like living together on the road for months on end, and you are not aware that this guy is doing heroin. Nobody's that good at hiding it.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense unless they were all just shit-faced the entire time.
Which makes more sense.
Yeah, it actually does make sense. Hello, and welcome to another episode of 1001 Album Complaints. This is the show where lifelong friends, musicians, and people who have been ostracized from polite society because we're too damn nitpicky get together to talk about albums from Robert Dimery's list of 1001 albums you must hear before you die. We are going to give our general impressions on the album, do a deep dive into the background of the artist leading up to the album. We're going to play some tracks, so if you're not familiar, don't worry. We're going to play enough that you can follow along at home. And at the end, we're going to vote and tell you whether or not you really do need to hear this album before you die. And then we'll randomly select next week's album. Now, a word of warning, if this is your first time listening to the show, we are all musicians, music appreciators, huge fans. We know that a lot of love and effort and care has to go into any artistic endeavor, but there's always a lot to make fun of. So we are going to find the nits and we're going to pick them mercilessly. So you have been warned. Today, we are talking about the February 24th, 1992 release from Atco Records. It is the album A Vulgar Display of Power by the band Pantera. If you are unfamiliar with this album, we're going to play a clip right now of the opening track so that you can get a taste of what we have been listening to this week. We have level set. I'm going to throw it around the room as always to our cast of complainers, and they're going to introduce themselves with a particularly mean tweet length review. And I'm going to go first to Marty.
Hey, everyone, and thank you, Tom. Here's my mean tweet. When I read that this week's assignment was Pantera, I thought to myself, I can't wait to discuss freshly baked breads, soups, and salads. When I reread the assignment and saw that it was actually Pantera, I drove to a Panera, cursed out the cashier, beat him up, and pissed on him. A real vulgar display of power.
Yes. I kind of take issue with the fact that you're saying Panera is fresh baked. That shit is microwaved. You know it is. They're not baking anything fresh there.
Yeah, it just had Chef Mike. Come on now.
Now we're going to throw it over to our special guest, first time appearing on the show. He'll get a proper introduction later, but Eric, why don't you give us your mean tweet?
Well, no, I thought hard about this, and from a band whose legacy includes the likes of Avenged Sevenfold, Five Finger Death Punch, and their own questionable politics, as well as a musical guest appearance on SpongeBob in 2001, it's hard to find a better guilty pleasure to work out to when I just don't need to pay attention.
That's not even that particularly mean. I feel like that's like probably their,
It makes you sound smart, like you know a lot of information about the band.
Oh my God, Marty, somebody did research. God damn. All right, I am Tom, and I'm going to be taking us on this journey through the life and times of Pantera. And my tweet length review is, God damn, guys, why are you so angry? You're making me miss the innocent old days of singing about the devil and Nazi war criminals. Instead of your favorite topic, motherfuckers need to stop talking shit. Oh my goodness. All right. Before we get into our general impressions, I just want to say welcome to our special guest, Eric. Now, Eric is a guy that I hang out with when I'm in Delaware for the summer, and he runs a music bingo night. And when he showed me his playlists, I said, damn, this guy knows a lot about music. We got to get him in here. Eric, say hello to everybody.
How's it going, everybody? I don't have much else to pitch.
Oh, really? Okay, fair enough. I thought maybe you had some more interesting things going on in your life, but I guess not. That's why you have time to do this show. I appreciate it. So, Eric, why don't you kick it off? What was your general impression of this album, and were you familiar with it before this week?
I'd say I was familiar with Pantera just as a band. They've come across them in random mixes or the Pandora stations and all that, but I hadn't taken the time to properly listen to this album, at least not to my recollection. In terms of like general take, I mean, it starts off with a punch to the face. The album art is very appropriate, and it just kind of hits you with that wall of sound. But then it shifts constantly as it goes through it. I don't know. It was interesting. It made me realize just how much I don't like Pantera, but I can still dance to it.
I can agree with the not liking Pantera part. I don't know if I can agree to the dance to it part. I don't know what kind of dancing you're doing.
I would say like the WWF childhood fan in me kind of liked how this album was kind of like a WWF press conference, you know, like, you talking to me, punk?
Yeah.
You know, but the music itself, I think, rips. I mean, particularly the guitar playing is out of this world. That is the strongest part of this album.
Absolutely. I'll add to it and say that I think that the guitar playing and the drumming mesh together in a way that only brothers that came up playing together could possibly do.
And our audience might not know this, but Tom had the nickname Teabag Tom in high school, and he almost joined the band at one point on the kazoo.
Yeah, you know, they were like, "We need another bass player because you can't hear our bass player on this album at all." Rex Brown has the easiest job in all of music, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe he's doing some really complicated stuff, but the drums and the guitar are so fucking loud on this album. You cannot hear anything the bass.
They are carrying the load.
Yeah, Daryl Abbott, he's a fantastic guitar player. The thing that I really appreciated about his style is that it's pretty clean. Like, not clean tone, but there's not a lot of errant notes in there. He is playing very precise, and you can tell he is an operator on that guitar. He's very comfortable.
Oh, absolutely. Other metal guitar players that can add effects to make any sort of tempo error or missed note hard to see, but not Daryl. You can hear every single note crystal clear.
Yeah.
He doesn't fuck up.
No, and there's a lot of rhythmic interplay with the drums where they're kind of doing little fast triplets, and he's doing a triplet strum while they're getting a ba-da-bum on the drums.
Totally.
And they are dead on. Absolutely 100% nailed. And I think he writes really cool riffs. His riffs are kind of snaky, and they sort of play around with landing on the one. There's not a whole lot of, 1, 2, 3, 4, dun, 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 dun. It's very snaky.
Great riffs, and in my opinion, better guitar playing than a lot of the other contemporaries of this band, like Metallica, and better drumming, of course. Everyone knows that.
Well, yeah, everyone knows that. I feel like Marty, you give me 6 weeks and I could probably play for Metallica.
Right. Vocally, the album is a little bit meh for me. Lyrically, childish or something. Yeah. But I love that, like, every of this era, like, you couldn't have a metal album without one, like, sensitive song about your best buddy, your friend.
We'll talk about that later. But it really does crack me up how they're like, we need like a slow, sensitive song, and they're like 2 minutes and 45 seconds into, like, fuck this, let's just rock.
Right. Like, yeah. It's hilarious.
One thing I just kind of want to mention, just talking about the vocals too, something I kind of picked up, and it's really more with the more in your face aggressive songs, but even just the way that the vocals kind of intermesh with what's going on with that guitar, with the drums and all that, it really reinforces the battering ram that's hitting your ears. Like, that's one thing that I kept on picking up on, and you'd actually like hear certain shifts where it would just drop off a bit, and it was interesting picking up on that.
It kind of like needs to be there. It kind of completes the sound, even though it's not like the best.
Yeah, you couldn't have an operatic metal singer over this stuff. It would not sound appropriate. I will give Phil Anselmo credit. We talk about this with some bands where you have a guy who doesn't play an instrument and he just sings, but he's still super locked into the rhythm that the band is doing and doesn't kind of explore the rhythmic possibilities when you don't have to play along to it. And he does that. I think he does a pretty good job of departing from the very rigid cadence that the band has, because the band is so locked in, and he'll depart and then come back at appropriate points to punch something up. And overall, I do think that they actually have decent sense of, I'm not going to say melody. I don't think he's got a decent sense of melody. I think his melodies are pretty weak overall, but I think he's got a pretty good sense of presentation of how to actually come out and really punch up a song and be additive in his part. Now, there's some shit that's just real cheesy, especially when he's doing the like angry, intimidating growl.
Yeah,
dude,
and there's like some parts where it's like Snoop Dogg or like Warren G like rapping effect, and I thought was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, this is pre new metal, but maybe this inspired a lot of those like, hey, we could rap and rock at the same time kind of bands. Yeah, and if so, fuck them. They're definitely off the list. All right, we're going to get into the background of the artist leading up to this album, but before we do that, we are going to take a quick break. And we are back. Now, let's get into this little group that is called Pantera. They are considered one of the founding fathers of groove metal, which is a subgenre of heavy metal. It is essentially thrash metal, but played at a slower tempo.
Slower?
Yeah, well, that's what...
Slower is like 190 beats per minute.
Well, I mean, you remember the Slayer album.
Oh, yeah, that was impossibly fast. Totally.
So the genre got its start in the late 80s with bands like Bad Brains and Exhorder, but it wasn't really popular until the early 90s when bands like Pantera and White Zombie both sort of changed up their style to adopt this more groove-oriented sound. So I know what you're all saying. Hold on a second. Changed up their sound, you say? Every single song on the album sounds exactly the same. That is pretty much true. However, if you look at Pantera's online catalog, you will see that their, quote, debut album is Cowboys from Hell. But digging a little deeper, it turns out Cowboys from Hell is actually Pantera's 5th album, and they had 4 albums before that they have sort of attempted to disown and say that their 5th album is actually their debut. It is a weird and complicated history, and so let's just jump right in. We're going to talk about the backstory. The core of Pantera came together when 2 brothers from Texas decided they wanted to start a band. Daryl and Vinnie Paul Abbott were the sons of country music writer and producer Jerry Abbott and his wife Carolyn. So Vinnie's the older brother, born in 1964. Daryl was born in 1966. And despite the fact that Jerry and Carolyn split up in the mid-70s, Jerry lived close by, and by all accounts, there was a pretty well-functioning family unit. Daryl took up the guitar at age 12 and would ride his bike over to his dad's house frequently to get guitar lessons. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that Daryl took up the guitar within a year of his parents divorcing, because it kind of seems like it was a great way for him to sort of stay connected to his dad. Now, Vinnie also got a drum set when his dad was upset that Vinnie had been assigned to play the tuba in the school band like every other chubby kid. And his dad buys him a drum kit because he said, quote, drummers have better career prospects.
They had it all planned out, it sounds like.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's actually kind of an important point, is that even in their early teens, their dad was instilling upon them, you can be a professional musician. You can make this happen. Whereas, like, I don't know, Marty, did your parents ever encourage your musical bend ever?
Hell no.
No.
We had a guitar laying around the house, but I was never, invited to play it. Maybe I just think that.
Yeah, well, I think even more so. Like, my parents were like, it's fun that you play music, but like, you're going to need to get a real job at some point.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. All that.
And I mean, they were right. I didn't have the skill to make it, but maybe if from 12 years old, I was like dedicated to becoming a professional, it could have happened.
And your parents were famous country musicians.
Well, I don't know about famous, but working
country musicians, sure.
Yeah. And actually, it's a interesting point that the only one of us who ever made any kind of like career out of playing music was Adam. And Adam's dad was a professional musician for a while. So I do think that probably influenced him. Our parents having square jobs, they were like, you got to go work in an office somewhere and slowly lose your soul every day. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. Like a lot of kids at the time, the Abbott brothers were huge into Kiss. And in fact, after Daryl received his first guitar at 12 years old, he would get himself dolled up in Ace Frehley makeup and stand in front of the mirror posing with the guitar, despite not being able to play. That was sort of his entry into guitar. And actually, Vinny talks about like walking by his room and seeing him like standing in the mirror, like posing with the guitar and be like, are you ever going to fucking learn how to play that thing? And he's just like, nah, I'm just kind of happy posing with it. But he doesn't just pose for long, because pretty quickly he starts to play the guitar, and it's evident that he is kind of a prodigy. So he pours himself into becoming a good guitar player, so much so that at the age of 14, he enters himself into a local guitar playing competition, judged by none other than Dean Guitars founder Dean Zielinski. And even though Daryl was not old enough to even legally be in the club where the competition was held, he ends up winning. And he was so good that Dean Zielinski remembered him years and years later and was like, oh, he blew everybody away. It was crazy watching this kid come up and just absolutely shred. He wins a Dean guitar as the grand prize. And if you look at footage of Daryl playing throughout his entire career, he always is playing Dean guitars. He basically stayed true to Dean from that day forth. He was so good at playing the guitar that by the time he was 15, they were not letting him enter into any more of these guitar competitions because he keeps winning them. Which, by the way, what the fuck is a guitar competition?
Yeah, but
I've never heard of that before.
He keeps winning them because the same guy is probably the judge in every single one, you know?
Well, the funny thing is they actually, at 15, were like, you should just be a judge. And so he became a judge for the guitar competitions.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, I mean, could you imagine? You're like a 26-year-old who's been like sweating your ass off the guitar, and some 15-year-old is like, your fingering's pretty sloppy, man. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what a fucking
Well, it's probably the same 15-year-old that's just been kicking your ass for the past like 5 years.
That's a fair point. That's already pretty emasculating.
You're like, finally, at least he's out of the competition.
All right. So you have two brothers, the younger of whom is a local guitar prodigy, and the older of whom is playing the drums, and I'm sure trying to just stay good enough that his little brother isn't showing him up all the time. Of course, they're going to start a band. Now, their dad had been taking them to see bands since they were like early teenagers, even preteens. So they got to see like Aerosmith, Heart, Van Halen, all these bands that were not as huge as they got, like kind of on their upswing. And we're talking like even before these kids had hit puberty, they were like, oh yeah, I've been fourth row at a Van Halen show. So they're pretty obsessed with this glamorous rock and roll lifestyle. So in 1981, they form Pantera. Actually, they don't really form the band. This is an interesting point here. The band forms because three guys from the local high school approach Vinny and ask him to drum for the band that they are forming. And Vinny says, I will join under the condition that you let my younger brother Daryl join as a guitar player for the band. And again, Daryl's like 15 at the time. The rest of them were like 17, but they're like, yeah, we'll take him, whatever.
I mean, hopefully he said he wins every guitar competition. Can he join?
Yeah, that's probably pretty relevant information. He's absolutely going to blow you out of the fucking water. No question about it. Yeah. But it does sound that like they were like truly best friends. Like there was not a whole lot of competition or anything like that. It seems like they were pretty supportive of each other. So the band calls themselves Gemini, then they call themselves Eternity, and then finally they settle on Pantera. And the name Pantera, it's always sounded like listening to this band, I was like, that sounds a little cheesy as a band name, like Pantera. It makes a whole lot more sense when you realize that when they formed, they all loved glam metal. And so they were a glam metal band. And, they're basically like huge Kiss fans. They make the choice to go glam metal also because their father is, again, very career minded. And so he's sort of like, hey, glam metal is the hot shit right now. You probably should be in a glam metal band. And when you listen to this album, you picture dudes in like wife beaters and like ripped up jeans and,
spiked shoulder pads. And
chain wallets galore and stuff like that.
They have like dogs attached to them while they perform.
So they decided to become a glam metal band. And at the time, Pantera is Daryl on guitar, Vinny on drums, and a guitar player named Terry Glaze. There is a lead vocalist whose name isn't important because he leaves the band in 1982, and a bass player who is also unimportant because he also leaves the band in 1982 and was replaced by a guy who at the time is going by the name Rex Rocker, aka Rex Brown, who remains the bass player of Pantera to this day. Now, we all know, I've been calling him Daryl Abbott this whole time. He's very commonly known as Dimebag Daryl. But all the way up until the production of A Vulgar Display of Power, even on this album, he is credited as Diamond Daryl. He was going as by Diamond Daryl, which was a carryover from his glam metal days.
Did you go back and listen to that stuff?
I did, yeah.
It sounds like, Striker or
totally.
just like something like
yeah, it's like Dragons and Wizards fucking metal type of shit.
Right. Right.
So The lead singer leaves. Terry Glaze moves over to lead vocals and decides that he can't really stand up to Daryl's playing anyway, so he stops playing guitar for the band, and we have the kernel of the classic Pantera format of one guitar, bass, drums, and a vocalist that doesn't play an instrument.
I'm just looking at their, information. Like the name Pantera, is it a play on the place in Texas where their studio is?
No. So
okay.
It is the Spanish word for panther, but it comes from apparently somebody approached Vinny when they were playing in the drum line together in their high school and was like, you should call your band Pantera because it's the name of this like super awesome sports racing car. And so they were like, yeah.
Weird.
So it's like an 80s style, like it almost looks like an 80s Ferrari or something like that, but it's the Pantera.
It's like a supercar. And it just so happens that the place in Texas where their studio is called Pantego.
Yeah.
It's like almost the same word, but with two different letters.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So, I don't know, it's just a happy accident or something like that.
It just sounds like high school shit at that point. Like, oh man, you should never been at this car.
You've changed your band name like 6 times already. How about this new band name that we could throw out there? It's a badass sports car. Totally gonna get you laid. Yeah. So they start playing as Pantera on the local circuit in 1983. And they're getting a reputation as like a pretty good band. It's mostly because they have a fucking wicked good guitar player in Daryl. Now they're playing mostly cover songs at the time, like Judas Priest, Kiss, Van Halen. And they don't really expand beyond playing in the greater Texas area. But like also Texas is fucking huge. So I mean that's pretty decent for a band who's like had 19-year-olds and a 17-year-old guitar player. Now they'll do the thing where larger bands will come through town and they will open for them. So they do several shows in the region as an opener for like bands like Dokken and Quiet Riot and bands like that. And say what you will about how the music of Dokken and Quiet Riot have aged. They were fucking killing it in the early to mid 80s. So those were pretty good gigs. They start to incorporate more original music into their sets, and in 1983, the band decides to go into the studio under the guidance of none other than old dad Jerry Abbott, and they cut their debut album, Metal Magic, which they release on their own independent label. I mean, yeah, this is like super fucking cheese. Like Rex Brown even has a story about talking about how like they're like, we're playing a show, you need to wear spandex. And he's like, I don't want to wear fucking spandex. He's like a skinny, tiny little dude. Like, everybody wears fucking spandex. You're teasing your hair up. And so they're like neon spandex, teased up hair, cheesy 80s glasses and shit like that. It's pretty far from where they end up, which is interesting.
But they had already adopted the metal name, because I remember on one episode we listened to, we talked about how there was like an EP called Metal back in like the early 80s. That was like the first kind of use of that term to describe this kind of music.
So this was post there, or like 81, which I think was the sort of like metal as a term being widely popularized.
Right.
So they go ahead and they record, again, their dad, Jerry Abbott's their producer. They cut Metal Magic. They release it on their own independent label. It's a small release, but it does start to get them some buzz. They follow that release with Projects in the Jungle in 1984 and I Am the Night in 1985. And again, these albums sound nothing like the Pantera that you get on Cowboys from Hell or A Vulgar Display of Power. Like, the band that I was comparing them to was that band Cinderella. We're talking like, guys with fucking mascara playing metal music and shit.
They're all like Kiss derived bands anyway, right? It's kind of like that. This whole scene is all derived from maybe one or two bands.
Yeah, it's like Kiss with like a little bit of like the stagecraft of David Bowie tossed in there, but
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
So, despite hewing close to the popular genre of the day, they're not really having any real success. Now, when I say they're not having any real success, they're apparently selling 10 to 20,000 units of each of the albums that they've released so far, which is almost like this weird Goldilocks zone. And by what is the anti-Goldilocks zone? It's like the shitlock zone, where it's like enough for you to be like, I'm making some money and maybe I can make it big, but it's not enough that you're like, I can actually make a good life on selling 20,000 copies of my album. They're not financially secure. They don't really know if it's going to be a long-term play. They're struggling to stand out in a crowded glam music scene where like bands like Motley Crue and Van Halen are just exploding, and they're kind of getting lost in the shuffle. Now, they know that they need to make a change if they're ever going to hit it big. And to their credit, they decide to make the drastic move of letting go of founding member Terry Glaze. Terry Glaze is the guy who approached Vinny to start the band when they were in high school together. They kick him out of what he could argue was his band. And again, they came off of selling 25,000 copies of I Am the Night. And then they kicked their lead singer out of the band. If I was in a band that was selling 25,000 copies of my album, I don't think I'd have the balls to kick my lead singer out of the band.
Yeah. I wonder how he felt about that.
You know,
I wonder if his feelings were
they
hurt.
say it was like a mutual parting, but then again, this is the story that Pantera is telling. I'm going to guess there's some fucking bruised egos going on there.
Yeah. Where is he now?
You know, I don't exactly know where Terry Glaze is. Let's see. I'm going to see if he's dead, because that was
It's a good start. Narrow it down from there.
yeah.
It's a good start. Yeah. Check the obituary section first.
Terry
and go
Glaze.
from there.
He's age 60 and not dead yet. I don't think he's really done anything post Pantera.
Has a Wikipedia page.
He does have a
Maybe.
Wikipedia page. Yeah.
Okay. Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
So after they kick Terry Glaze out, they are like, we have been trending a bit heavier with each album that we've been doing. And so that was actually part of the rift between them. By the time I Am the Night is released, there's a pretty significant gulf between the kind of music that Terry Glaze wants to make and the sound that Daryl and Vinny and Rex want to go in. So after they kick Glaze out of the band, they cycle through several lead singers over the course of 1986 until a kid named Phil Anselmo, who was just 18 at the time and a native of New Orleans, learns that Pantera is looking for a lead singer and decides to audition. They immediately click, and Phil is hired on the spot. Now, the fact that Phil is hired on the spot is pretty strange, considering that they had booted out several of the lead singers that they brought on post Terry Glaze because they couldn't hit the high soaring notes that Glaze had written for many of the songs that they had done previously. So Phil, you all heard this album, he does not have a high soaring voice, but they clicked enough that they basically were like, we can't perform any of the old songs that we wrote, and that's okay. We're going to just write new ones and go with, this new style because we think that it's a better fit for the band. When they go to audition, they can't even play Pantera songs because Phil Anselmo's like, I can't sing those songs. I can't sing the shit off of I'm the Night or Metal Magic or anything like that. So instead, they play every Judas Priest song that they know while drinking tequila and smoking massive amounts of weed. And whatever the reason, I'm sure it wasn't just that, he was a good hang to get high and fucking drunk with, but they all decide that they click and they say, you know what, we're going to bring him into the band, even though he's also several years younger. And that decision sort of changed them from this middling glam band into something that was kind of new and raw.
And usually like bands would change their name in that kind of scenario, but kind of maybe back to what you were talking about earlier, where they were selling enough and had enough of a name at that point that it probably were, they're like, let's
it is hard to rebuild a brand, you know?
And if you're already trending like towards that rougher, rawer sound, then it's not as hard just to say like, well, screw it, the old guy wasn't cutting it.
Yeah. And it also sounds like the old guy was kind of a douchebag. He was, I think, a big proponent of the wearing spandex and, Ray-Ban sunglasses and shit like that. Now, when I first started listening to this album, I was definitely like, that's a bunch of really talented musicians in Phil Anselmo. And I feel like in researching, I had to reevaluate my opinion on Phil Anselmo because a big thing that he brought to the table was this look outside of the glam metal and early 70s to mid 70s rock that the Abbott brothers had been super into. So Phil was a big fan of like Slayer and Exorder, and he brings these tapes to the band. And they dig this sort of more dark and heavy sound that they're hearing. But he's bringing like Master of the Puppets and Megadeth's Peace Sells But Who's Buying. And it sort of points in this direction of a new sound that is influenced by thrash, but with this sort of more southern down-tempo tinge. To Phil's credit, it sounds like he had been obsessed with music from a very young age. So at 9 years old, he'd already started writing songs. And it sounds like his parents and their friends were all sort of budding amateur musicians, and so it was a very sort of bohemian lifestyle with a lot of music around, a lot of people getting jam sessions going. And so he was definitely very influenced by that, but he got a wide variety of music that he listened to, from like Janis Joplin to the Beatles to Led Zeppelin and Kiss and Queen. And so he also got into the glam metal scene. And he drops out of high school at age 17. Again, terrible move. If any of our listeners are 17 and considering dropping out of high school, don't fucking do it. But he decides to drop out so he can make it as a singer in a band called Razor White. But he very quickly realizes that he's the only one taking it seriously and becomes disillusioned and decides that he wants to try and find a better situation. And that leads him to audition for Pantera. Now, one thing that is interesting, when Phil joins the band, they've already written their fourth album, Power Metal. But because of Phil's different vocal approach, they have to rework the songs. And so despite Phil joining the band in 1986, when the album was already written, they don't release Power Metal until 1988. So they kind of bake on it for about a year and a half. And it's best viewed as a transition album for Pantera. It's more Judas Priest than Van Halen. But even though they were trying to transition these songs into a heavier feel, they were still sort of written with that glam hair metal style in mind.
They had already recorded the album with the other singer?
No. They had just written all the songs.
They had written all the songs.
Okay,
He was able to create his own vocal stylings
yes.
with this one, even though he didn't really directly participate in the song per se. Okay.
So one of the things that Phil does is apparently whenever they're driving in the van to go from shows, he was militant about controlling the music that was being listened to. And so he was always in control of the tape deck, and he starts playing these more like heavier thrash albums. And the Abbott brothers are kind of resistant to the change at first, but sort of over the course of 1977 and 1988, they start coming around that this sort of raw, powerful thrash sound is the future. And so they start reworking the songs on Power Metal to better fit Phil's vocal approach. They start leaning into a heavier sound. They also, at this point, decide to drop their previous image. They get rid of the spandex and the teased out hair, and they kind of go for this sort of like southern biker redneck look, which I think is a good look for them. I think they can pull it off pretty well. They got a new sound, a new look, and they're looking for a way to get more exposure. And then one night in late 1988, there is a fortuitous event. The previously mentioned band Slayer had released their album South of Heaven in July 1988, and they're touring to support it when they happen to have a few nights off in the general area of a Pantera show. And they all decide, hey, let's go see Pantera. I've been kind of hearing about these guys. Apparently, Kerry King and Phil Anselmo, the guitarist Kerry King for Slayer and Phil Anselmo, instantly hit it off. And Kerry becomes this kind of unofficial Pantera booster, kind of constantly talking up how cool the band is. He even plays a few shows with Pantera. But what he does is he spends months with Daryl Abbott, sort of schooling him on the particulars of thrash metal, and teaches him the right hand technique to get that kind of like, dun, 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 you know, the sort of thrash strum going on, and teaches him all about the ways to construct these kind of snaky riffs. And Daryl's a quick study. So he picks up on what King is teaching him, and he starts expanding upon it. And pretty soon, Kerry King is like, well, you know, fucking Daryl's better than me. This guy's fucking shredding it. And so the catalyst for the next album, 1990's Cowboys from Hell, was a close working relationship between Kerry King from Slayer and Dimebag Daryl, at this time still Diamond Daryl from Pantera. I'm thinking back to the Slayer episode that we did a couple of months ago, and I don't even know if I gave them enough credit for how influential they were. Like, I knew they were an influential band, but they essentially took another band that was just some middling shit metal band and was like, now I'm going to turn you into like one of the most influential thrash metal bands of all time. So good on them. All right. So when we last left Pantera, they had finally teamed up with Kerry King of Slayer. Not finally, but they teamed up with Kerry King of Slayer. They got Phil Anselmo in there. They are developing a new sound, and they are trying to come up with a way to get something that's going to differentiate themselves. But they know that what they are really missing is major label representation. And that is going to bring us to tonight's edition of Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power by the Numbers.
Oh, this is going to be so great.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate the enthusiasm. The first number we're going to go at is 28. As in, 28 record labels rejected Pantera in 1989 alone. They sent their stuff out to 28 different record labels, all of whom said that they were not interested. At least they got formal rejections and they didn't just get ghosted. Maybe they had like enough pull to actually get a formal rejection. The next number that we're going to throw out is just the number 1. And that is the number of songs that Mark Ross saw Pantera play live before calling his boss at Atco Records and demanding that they sign the band that very night. Apparently their live shows were fucking insane at the time.
I can imagine, but was Atco Records a major label at that time? I've never heard of them.
They were considered a major label. I didn't say they were a good one, but they were a major label. But yeah, they were plugged into distribution networks, which I think had been what the previous releases were missing. Because you can release an album on your own. Like, I've done it several times. We have a record label, the Chop Unlimited. We release albums on that all the time, but we don't have its distribution. Atco was owned by the Warner Music Group, and so they had access to all of these distribution channels, which is really what you need. You got to get it on the shelves, you know?
Oh, totally, yeah. I'm not sure how this works, but I guess they were a big kind of U.S. distributor of a lot of like famous UK bands. It looks like The Who and Lennon and the Beatles.
Oh yeah, I mean they put out like what, Bobby Darin?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Bobby Darin, yeah. Okay, so they're legit.
They put out fucking Vanilla Fudge, man. Come on.
Oh God, I can't believe that.
All right, and the last number that we are going to throw out here is 1.5, and those are two separate numbers, as in 1 bottle of water and half a bottle of tequila, which is what Pantera says were provided to them in the green room, which was actually a tent, when they opened for Metallica and AC/DC at the Monsters of Rock Festival at the Tushino Airfield in Moscow during the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. One of the largest performances of all time, where more than 500,000 people showed up, and they were given 1 bottle of water and a half of a bottle of tequila.
Jesus Christ. Make it last.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I'm wondering, like, who was drinking that tequila beforehand, right? Like,
Right.
They're just like, listen, it's Russia. We can get you all the vodka you want, but if you want tequila, like, I'm just going to have to go and like grab the one I have in my cabinet and bring it to you.
Right.
You're just going to have to share. That's all it amounts to.
Yeah. I don't think a half a bottle of tequila was going to last them very long. They were some pretty hard drinking dudes. All right. So Pantera now has been signed to a major record label. So it's 1989. They're on Atco Records. They have somebody willing to distribute their material. They know it's finally their chance to make it after years of small-time success. They go back to the same studio where they recorded their first 4 albums, Pantego Sound. Except this time, instead of Jerry Abbott being the producer, they're working with Terry Date, a guy who specialized in producing heavy metal albums and also had produced a Sir Mix-a-Lot album for some reason too. But it's a big deal to work with Terry Date. The guy knows what he's doing, and he helps them record 1990's Cowboys from Hell. It's released on July 24th. They immediately start touring to promote the album. They're opening for the bands Exodus and Suicidal Tendencies. But they have a thing happen in 1991 that is kind of a big deal for them. So Cowboys from Hell is topped out at number 27 on the U.S. Heat Seekers charts, which is pretty good. They're riding high, and all of a sudden, they're playing a show, and fucking Rob Halford from Judas Priest joins them on stage, and is like, I fucking love you guys. Why don't you come open for Judas Priest when we tour Europe?
Damn.
So these are guys who like, that was what they did when they auditioned Phil Anselmo. They played Judas Priest songs. They love fucking Judas Priest. That's got to be a big deal. It's got to feel pretty good.
Oh, yeah. And they're like, come open for us, joins them on stage. I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
They're probably elated.
So not only do they open for Judas Priest on the European tour, they collaborate with Rob Halford for a song that appears on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer track. And what more could a thrash metal band hope for? Everything is going their way. Except that Phil Anselmo is starting to have severe back pain, and it's partially due to his athletic stage performances. The band pretty quickly gets tired of Phil's bitching about his back and tells him to go see a doctor, and he's diagnosed with a degenerative back disorder. So essentially the discs in his back and like the fluid between it were starting to disintegrate, and so it was like pinching a lot of his nerves and causing him a lot of intense pain. And the doctor is like, hey, there's a cure for this. You got to get back surgery, and you're not going to be able to perform for like a year. And Phil's like, damn, like we just released what we're now considering our debut album. We're starting to get some heat. We just played with fucking Judas Priest, for Christ's sake. It's kind of off the table that they're going to be out of commission for a year. So what does Phil start doing? He starts taking pills. That's what you do. That's how it always starts. So it's not entirely out of the ordinary for the band that somebody's doing a lot of drugs. Apparently Vinny was a, quote, maniac for ecstasy and was just like eating ecstasy all the time.
Wow, so ecstasy existed back then. Amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very metal. We're talking like this is like 1991.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
Yeah, well, some of those like sincere songs come out on this album, you know, after he's taking ecstasy.
Yeah. So Rex is also doing all the drugs that he can get his hands on. And Daryl, who, remember, at this point is still going by Diamond Daryl, not Dimebag Daryl, is the most buttoned up of the group. He's just smoking shitloads of weed and drinking multiple bottles of tequila every night. So they have a hit album. They're being hailed as a band on the cutting edge of a new style of metal, this groove metal. They know they have to strike while the iron is hot. So in 1991, after touring internationally to promote Cowboys from Hell, they go back to good old Pantera Sound Studios and they record their sixth album, which is 1991's A Vulgar Display of Power. Now, listen, Cowboys from Hell, it did great for a thrash metal album, but it doesn't even go gold until 1993. So they're not exactly like set for life at this point. They have some momentum behind them, but they're looking to have that lightning strike of an album that puts them in the upper echelon of metal acts. They've been touring like animals to promote Cowboys from Hell. So when they go into Pantera Studios in late 1991, they only have 3 songs written, which were A New Level, Regular People, parentheses, Conceit, and No Good, parentheses, Attack the Radical. We get it. You don't need to use parentheses on every goddamn song. They are working with Terry Date again, and they spend 2 months writing and recording the songs for A Vulgar Display of Power. And it's actually during this time that they are tapped to come play in Moscow during the Monsters of Rock show. So they take a break from recording, head over to Russia to play one of the biggest shows of all time. And one of the interesting things is that Metallica, who was the headliner of that Monsters of Rock, actually played a big role in the style and songwriting choices on A Vulgar Display of Power. Because when Metallica released the Black Album, which I think was 1991, basically like Daryl and Vinny were like, oh, these guys turned into huge pussies. Like they used to rock. And they were like, you know, I bet a lot of people feel like us. I bet there's a lot of disillusioned thrash metal guys out there, and we can go and fill that void. We can take over the thrash metal mantle from Metallica.
A great business decision.
It was. I wonder if old Jerry Abbott was in there telling him, like, Metallica turned into a bunch of short-haired pussies. Got to get out there and rock even harder. So at this point, Rex Brown drops the name Rex Rocker. Just goes by his Christian name.
Only took a few years too long to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. He only did it for a solid like 9 years. And this is the point where Daryl stops calling himself Diamond Daryl and goes by Dimebag Daryl. But he is still credited as Diamond Daryl on this album. I know. I looked at that. I thought that must have been a typo. And I looked at it. I was like, oh, that's clearly must be Dimebag. Somebody's had autofill put Diamond in there. But no, that was a conscious decision. So when it is released, February of 1992, A Vulgar Display of Power is hailed by critics as a landmark metal album. Janice Garza of Entertainment Weekly calls it one of the most satisfying heavy metal records since Metallica's early 80s cult days. So, their play to capture the disappointed Metallica fans is definitely a success. The album peaks at number 44 on the U.S. Billboard charts. Now, remember, Cowboys from Hell got 27 on the Heat Seekers charts. And to refresh everybody's memory, the Heat Seeker charts are for bands that have never charted before. So you're only going up against new acts on those charts. This is for all albums. It was number 44 on the U.S. Billboard charts. And that is a huge achievement for an album like a Vulgar Display of Power.
Especially in 92 when there's so many new, you have MTV's at its peak.
Yeah.
You have so much new music and hot bands coming out that probably also had never charted before.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, acts that we all know and love and have aged incredibly well, like Billy Ray Cyrus, who spent 18 weeks atop the charts with this album, Some Gave All, and Garth Brooks, who had 2 separate albums go number 1, Roping the Wind and The Chase. Even frickin' Michael Bolton had a number 1 album in 1992, as well as the kitty-rapped novelty act Criss Cross.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard enough.
I loved how you teed that up. You're like, 1992 was a great year for music.
There's got to be one good band on there.
So, needless to say, the sound of Pantera was a refreshing sound for people that were trying to escape the fucking pablum that was being shoved upon them, like this artist that we just referenced here. They go on to release Far Beyond Driven in 1994 and The Great Southern Trendkill in 1996, as well as Reinventing the Steel in 2000. But despite the fact that the band was seeing commercial success, I mean, fucking Far Beyond Driven debuted at number 1 on the charts. So that goes to show you how big that band had gotten. There are tensions in the band that are leading to a marked reduction in output and eventually the band breaking up. So Phil Anselmo's drug use has evolved from taking pills for his back to doing shit tons of heroin, culminating in an overdose in 1996 that leaves him dead for a full 5 minutes. The rest of the band claims that they had no idea that he was doing heroin at the time. And every time I hear that, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You guys are like living together on the road for months on end and you are not aware that this guy is doing heroin? Nobody's that good at hiding it.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense unless they were all just shit-faced the entire time.
Which makes more sense.
Yeah, it actually does make more sense.
Very, very possible.
Yes, I would say probable is probably, yeah. So the rest of the band is sort of upset about it. They kind of further causes some fractures. It leads to the band taking a hiatus. Again, they put out The Great Southern Trendkill in 96, and they don't put out Reinventing the Steel until 2000. There's a 4-year gap in there. Phil Anselmo also starts to face accusations of racism after saying at a show in Montreal in 1995 that, quote, rap music advocates the killing of white people.
Oh, God.
Yeah. He is also accused of giving the Nazi salute and saying white power while performing on stage. And by accused, I mean he fucking 100% did that shit, and it's on video. Now, he claims that it was in response to people heckling him from the crowd, and then he immediately made a bunch of donations to various Jewish organizations after that. But that seems like something a PR firm tells you to do because your fucking label is pissed off at you.
And fast forward to 2025, that's all pretty mainstream behavior again.
Well, they are touring again, I think.
Right. They are, yeah. The PR firm be like, can you do some more of that Nazi salute stuff? We can get you trending. So Phil's working on a lot of side projects. So are the other members, which is also partly responsible for them not putting out an album between 96 and 2000. They're fighting with each other. And in 2000, after putting out Reinventing the Steel, which I'm pretty sure is a reference to Judas Priest's British Steel, they end up calling it quits. They officially break up. Now, Daryl and Vinny get together and form a band called Damage Plan, releasing an album called Newfound Power. And they are touring to promote the release when on December 8th, 2004, 24 years to the day after John Lennon was killed by Mark David Chapman, a crazed fan, who I will not name here, walks on stage during the first song of the Damage Plan set and shoots and kills Daryl Abbott on stage in front of hundreds of people, as well as Damage Plan's head of security, Jeffrey Thompson, Aaron Hawk, an employee of the club who was killed when she tried to restrain the gunman, and Nathan Bray, a fan who jumped on stage to try to stop him from shooting more people. So 2 other people are shot but not killed, and the gunman is shot and killed by the police just a few minutes later. So he goes on stage, kills Dimebag Daryl and 3 other people, shoots 2 more people, and Jesus fucking Christ. It's disturbing. I don't know if you guys have seen the footage of that. It's fucking terrible.
No, but, you know, that's why I won't step foot in Ohio, you know?
Just another reason for me.
Yeah,
Right.
Listen.
Yeah, one of many reasons I should have said.
4 dead in Ohio, as they say. So it's a tragic end to a very innovative and I think important guitar player. And Vinny also tragically dies of heart failure in 2018 when he's just 54 years old. Ugh. So Jerry Abbott's plan to have his boys become rock stars was a success, but goddamn, at what cost? Both of them dead before 55. That is some seriously fucked up shit. But they did burn pretty hot and leave a mark on music. So let's get into some of these individual tracks, and we're going to start breaking them down to discuss them. We played a little bit of this at the top of the episode, but we're going to revisit the opening track, Mouth for War.
I mean, I think it really set the tone for at least the rest of the album. So we got that obligatory sad song.
Well, yeah.
It comes in driving. It comes in with exactly that whole instrumental thing I was talking about, with the instrumental is being backed up by the vocal to just shove you with this wall of sound. It's interesting, though, because it happens so it's about the 3-minute mark, you have this break, and then it kind of comes into this, and I don't know if it's just because he got tired, but it backs off a bit in a way that I actually feel like probably contributes to some of that, like, that live ethos that they had there, because it turns into this thing where I couldn't keep up with him, like, for the most of the song, but I could probably sing along to that second part.
You just maybe ran out of gas, ran out of steam.
Yeah.
I think this song has a great first word, which is revenge.
Yeah.
It's a great opening lyric.
I do like how, though, he says he screams revenge, and then the next line is, I'm screaming revenge again. It's like, yeah, we know, Phil, you just screamed it. We got it, buddy. Come on. But let me ask you a question, Marty, because I was curious what your opinion is on this. What do you think about the drum tone on this album?
Oh, I think it's great.
Oh, I fucking hate it.
Oh, really?
I hate it so much, yeah.
It's like a perfect metal intonation. It kind of sounds like wet or something, or like you poured like water on the toms. It gives them this weird kind of watery, metallic-y, weird sound. And I think you could kind of hear each drum. You can be like, oh, there's the kick drum, there's the snare, there's the toms, you know, and I feel like they're balanced well. I could see how someone might not like it, but to me this is like just a great drum sound that was copied many times over after this.
Sure. I agree with your comment that the actual recording is great. The separation is great. There's not a lot of muddiness. It all is very, very clear. But there's just something about, especially on the toms and the kick, it just sounds plastic to me. And I feel like in some of the older drum tones, it almost sounded more like you're beating on like animal skins, and I kind of like that. Maybe it doesn't fit metal, but I don't know.
Yeah, they're not like tuned, I guess. You know, you don't hear some albums you find around this time, you know, you can actually hear a tone coming out of the drums. These more sound just like you just hear a different low. They're tuned real low, and so you just hear kind of a slapping sound on the drums rather than like a tonal sound. Yeah. For fast stuff, if you start hearing lots of tones, and also you'll notice that the cymbals break up real fast. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so if you're playing music that this fast where you're hitting that many drums and you have overtones everywhere, it's hard to get a good sound overall.
All right, that's a fair point. And they probably had, I'm sure they had some kind of gate on those cymbals.
Oh, they had to have. Right, exactly.
Yeah. So for people that are not familiar, the concept of like putting like a gate on something means that it will only register if it's above a certain volume. So like you can kind of make it so that only if you're hitting a snare drum, only the actual sound of the impact, the crack, and then none of the reverberation is on there because it's at a lower level of sound. So that's what we're kind of talking about with like putting gates on the drums. I think the drum playing is fantastic.
Oh, it's
I think
ridiculous.
Vinnie Paul's fucking amazing.
I mean, having to compete with your brother who wins every guitar contest made him so good, but also you could tell they just played together so long because they are locked in. And that's probably why the bass player could almost be anyone.
Oh yeah.
You know,
easiest job in music.
Yeah.
I remember reading that Daryl and Vinny said that the first jam session they had together was they literally played Smoke on the Water for 12 hours. Mm-hmm. They just sat in their house, in their room, and they're like, all we know is how to play Smoke on the Water, but we're just going to play it all fucking day. And kudos to their parents for having the patience to listen to that shit. I'm sure they weren't playing through headphones. I love how this song goes into double time, like right at 3 minutes, and just kind of like, you know, you sort of feel like it's kind of grooving. And then they're just like, let me just fucking blast you with double time. It's a nice song on our focus list. This is the song.
My first thought was like Marilyn Manson kind of just stole this kind of like riff, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty direct ripoff in my opinion. Also, it's funny that it's like a big tough metal guy is like singing a song about like a gossiping friend. You know?
I heard you were talking shit, man. Not cool.
Yeah. I thought we were friends.
You tell them I'm still wearing spandex.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I get the sense that Phil Anselmo is a little bit more of a sensitive guy than he might come off in his lyrical choice. But one of the things that really stood out to me, and this is the first song on our focus list that highlights this. I don't know if any of you guys noticed this. In almost every single band, if you have one guitar player, a bass player, a drummer, and you're going to do a guitar solo, you have a rhythm guitar track underneath the guitar solo. They drop out to just bass and drums and a guitar soloing over top of it. It's really uncommon to do that. And it actually stood out to me as like, it was stark. Like it really guitar. You got bass and drums and vocals, and then you drop out half of those elements, no rhythm guitar, no vocals, and it's just lead guitar, drums, and bass.
Yeah, and not only that, the content of the guitar solo in this particular song is really weird. It's just really weird. It sounds like a yo-yo or something, like a synthesizer. It's just like a really strange, odd guitar solo, but it shows Dimebag's command of the instrument in a really kind of clear way.
Totally. He had a method where he would do a lot of pre-bending of strings. So he'd like bend the string before he hit it so he could come down off of it. And it was a lot of like, he had really good right hand technique. So he was doing a lot of like delayed hitting with his pick hand so that he could get different sounds out of it, which I mean, it comes through. He's just a fucking artist. He really is. He's a very, very good guitar player.
This song and the last song, you know, we're so far into this song selection, you're like, okay, so far so good for the album.
Yeah.
See, it's interesting because about halfway through the song is where I started losing my focus on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for me, up until about like Rise, like it's kind of that's where it falls in the background for me. I mean, like it's there. I'm feeling it. I'm like kind of processing it, but I think I'm just kind of just getting in that like swing it kind of has, and then but I'm not actually paying attention to it. I had to listen to this.
It is a little on the long side.
It is.
Yeah.
There's kind of a point after about like 2 minutes and 20 seconds or something where they kind of do that like, are you talking to me, motherfucker? And you're like, oh, you could just end the song right there. And they sort of go on for kind of a long time after that. And it is repetitive. But I can also see why this song was a hit. Like this is speaking to angry teenage boys who can't get laid, which I think describes a lot of Pantera's fan base at the time. And they're like, I'm kind of drunk, I'm pretty angry, I haven't had sex in maybe my entire life, and I just want to punch something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I will give Phil Anselmo some credit here. I always appreciate a low harmony. I don't know if that's what you can even call the little, like, so learned in life that he's doing.
I mean, I guess technically it's a harmony.
Technically it's a harmony, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I doubt he knew what a harmony or could have seen different harmonies.
It doesn't sound pitched.
Yeah, right.
All right. The next song on our focus list is the song Rise.
This is my favorite song so
This
far.
song fucking rips.
Yeah, it's got the best riff. That riff is so goddamn catchy.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, this is right out of the Kerry King from Slayer playbook. Like, I could totally see him writing this exact song, and I dig it. It's fucking great. I do think that this might be Phil Anselmo's worst vocal performance. He kind of comes off like the Ultimate Warrior on this track. A little bit like, yeah, like the melody's non-existent, and he's pushing so hard to work something out of it, but there's just nothing there. And so it's a little, I would like this so much more if it was an instrumental or just had a different singer.
Totally. The real thrashy part that comes in like 30 seconds into it is awesome because Dimebag's muting like right after. I think he's doing like upstrokes and then a mute. And so it creates this just a cool space where the drum, there's like kind of just like a moment of silence after each little part of the riff. And I think it just comes off as just like, oh, it's almost like a dance number or something, you know?
Yeah.
It grooves like a jazz song or something. It's like danceable.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, like, these guys are like, you're like, oh man, they just like fucking drinking and smoking weed and like, yeah, but also practicing like all the fucking time. You don't get to do that kind of shit by accident. That right hand technique that you're talking about of like upstroke, mute,
Yep.
going that fast, that shit's impossible. That's so hard to do.
That's pretty crazy.
Kind of going into like what you were talking about with just those push vocals and that's where it kind of starts almost feeling like a parody of myself. I can see the future of nu metal in that in that little bit, just where I had written a bad joke about is this Spinal Tap, but it's that it sounds so much like everything I ever listened to when I was 13.
Yeah, I could definitely see a bunch of guys like Fred Durst being like, wait, what if you don't even have to sing? What if you like, because I mean, clearly I can't sing for shit. So what if we can just go, yeah. You know, that's my Fred Durst impression. Yeah.
They don't always maybe necessarily have the best ideas, but their songs have structure where it's not just kind of a repetitive thing. You know, they have parts. You know, it's not just like A, B. So there's always a C part in almost every song.
Yeah, and they kind of do a little bit of we talked about this way back in the day on the Appetite for Destruction episode, where the trick Guns N' Roses uses is they always do a key change when the guitar solo comes in. So it really like highlights the guitar solo, like, oh, something's changing. And they do that a couple of times on this album, but it's also the thing where they're like, again, this is another one where they just drop out the rhythm guitar over the guitar solo. They really find ways to give Daryl the spotlight and let him shine. And this is a fucking ripping guitar solo again. I mean, he's got a very interesting and unique sound. But I think the people can imitate it. It's not like he's like, you know, unimitatable or anything like that, but it does sound fresh and original and new.
Right. It's funny. And he didn't live long enough to get to his like country phase, to follow in his dad's footsteps.
Well, totally. I mean, they were Southern good old boys. He totally would have been like, I can't be this angry anymore. Let's write a song about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Beers and trucks.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go on to the next song on our focus list. This is the song No Good, parentheses, Attack the Radical.
past burn fires. From evolution, we've been killing each other. I think man should have it down to a science. No chance, not for a minute, not for a second. I won't be defensive, I'm straight out. In my opinion, you better listen to a man who knows what he's saying. I see your side, you're running out for the mere fact that you feel inferior. Be superior, and now you're inferior. Race, pride, prejudice. Black man, white man, no stand. Live in the past, we make it last. A hated mess. No solution, mind pollution for revolution. So low below my eyes. This land of fools will rise.
They should have just kept "No Good" because that's what this song is. It's no good.
Yeah, this is the cringiest vocal delivery by far.
Yeah, I thought this was terrible.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, for like a minute, I was like, oh, here's a head bobbing riff, and then like the vocals came in, and I was like, what kind of like vocal style are we doing here?
Exactly. They almost tricked me into liking it, and then I started listening.
Well, and then even worse, you start paying attention to what he's actually saying. And I tried. I don't know what the fuck he's saying. And maybe it's just my knowledge of some of his past comments, but like there's definitely some readings of this that come off as pretty fucking racist. The line, "You blame oppression and play the role of criminals to rape and burn, show progress is minimal." It's like, what are you fucking talking about there, dude? And then he follows it up with "white hoods and militias. You know, it's such a pity living, breathing violence in your city." And so he's like, yeah, I mean, the militias and the KKK, you know, I mean, that's a pity. But let's focus on the violence in the cities. Like, let's make sure that that's what we're talking about there.
Yeah. Like at best, it's advocating for like just middle of the road.
Oh yeah, that
as much as
bullshit.
you can, and
The bullshit nihilism. Oh, every side's the same. It's like, yeah, I don't think that's the fucking case. But okay.
yeah, that aggressive centrism, and then it just. But yeah, then once you get the extra context of a Nazi salute, and
Yeah.
you say it's 2000 or so, like it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe there was a little bit more seething under the surface there. And Marty, you were right. This is definitely my low point. And frankly, it's like not that much different than the rest of the songs on the album. But I do think that, listen, I understand. Here's a subject, talk shit, get hit. That's an easy thing for me to grasp. But a diatribe and the complexities of race relations in America, like, Phil, you're out of your fucking depth.
Yeah, especially when you're not that bright, you know? It's like, I this is the point, I always glance at the lyrics as I'm listening to these songs, you know? And when I got to this song, I was like, I'm not looking at the lyrics anymore. It's affecting my opinion a little unfairly, I think, or too much.
I mean, I think maybe fairly. It was
Okay, fairly.
All right, let's go on to the last song on our focus list. This is the song. Again, they can't even hold it together for more than 3 minutes before they have to start fucking rocking. You got a little too Nothing Else Matters, and they're like, let's fucking rip.
Yeah, this song cracked me up. It's like an emotional song about a dude friend, you know?
Yeah. Just my bro, man. It's my hetero life partner, you know? But I do think that there's some poignancy to it because I think Phil is probably also at this point getting more and more addicted to pills. Mm-hmm. And he's writing a song about a friend who's essentially dead inside. And I'm assuming that's due to some kind of drug addiction or something like that. It's like an anti-ballad, I would say, because it's not like a ballad you think is like fucking Beth by Kiss or something, like love song type of shit. It's like anti-ballad. Which I don't know if that's really a thing, but I kind of dig it.
It's not terrible. You know, it has like the harmonized guitar thing. You know, it's got a nice, I guess, chord structure. It's so different than everything leading up to it that it's almost comes across as like funny or like a joke or something.
Well, I mean, there is the other slow song on the album, This Love, which is another like the long one. I mean, This Love is the longest song. Hollow is the second longest song on the album.
I think I missed that one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they do kind of blend together. I gotta say, like on repeat listens, the album's very samey.
And just kind of going through some of these lyrics, I'm looking at them right now. You kind of have to wonder how much of this is projection, or self-reflection.
Sure.
I mean, it's I'll admit, as corny as it is, I actually do like the obligatory sad songs, and it's hard for me to I'll still criticize them. I think it's still just total cheese, but I do enjoy it. It's a guilty pleasure of me. I agree it doesn't fit on this album, but
Well, the one thing that I appreciate, and we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about like Slayer and bands like that, it's like you can't just punish me with thrash for the entire album. I need a little bit of a break. And I think that This Love presents that break pretty well. And then you get to the end of the song, you get to the end of the album, and this is the last song, and they give you a little bit of that sort of, oh, okay, it's a little bit of a break. But then I actually like the fact that they come back in and they're like, no, we're going to rock you out. Like, we're not just going to, limp out of this album. We may have to make sure that we absolutely thrash our way out of this album. And I always do appreciate that. I especially appreciate when the outro song on an album has a long outro without singing. Like a long musical part with no vocals to kind of end the album. I do like that. I appreciate that.
I could see some early 90s bros, driving around in their Crown Victoria, listening to this album and kind of like get a little stoned. And by the end, like, oh man, that was just so sweet. That's just sweet ending,
Have I told you I loved you yet, bro? I fucking love you, man. Oh, man. So that about wraps up our conversation on the topic of these songs. Now it is the time that I know you, dear listeners, have all been waiting for. We get to vote and tell you, does this album really belong on the list of 1001 albums you must hear before you die? I'm going to go first to Eric. Does this belong? Tell us why or not. Why not?
as much as I hate to admit it, I have to go with yes. As I was listening to this album, I start hearing stuff that stretches on into the 90s, into the 2000s. And even just thinking like how like some of the rhythms like align with even stuff that I'm listening to today. It acted as a great transition point, I think, for like what metal meant. Again, as much as I don't personally like the album itself, I think it does have that like level of influence, and understanding this album kind of becomes a key to understanding some of the influences that those future bands would have.
All right. Excellent. Marty, what do you say?
So with all the things that Eric just said, which I agree with, if you look at the Wikipedia page for this album, that's pretty long and detailed. If you go under the legacy section, the very, very first thing it says as their legacy is that this album has been listed as one of the 1001 albums you must hear before you die. Very first thing. And I just think that's really sweet. And we're all living high and rich off this podcast. And so I appreciate that entry. And so with all the things Eric said and knowing that their Wikipedia updaters are following along to this book, I'm going to also say yes.
Okay. That is 2 votes for yes. And my vote is meaningless, but I'm still going to wax poetic about why my vote is a no. Yeah. So I actually kind of like this album. And in listening this week, I went back and listened to Cowboys from Hell. And I listened to the shit out of Cowboys from Hell. And I think Cowboys from Hell is the Pantera album that you must hear before you die. I don't think it's a vulgar display of power. I think that is a more important album for both the transition, and I think that it is a more important album for in terms of like influence and how they touched other artists.
But that one's not on the list.
That one is not on the list.
Okay.
This is their only album on the list, and I don't think that this is the album I would have picked from Pantera to put on the list. I think Cowboys from Hell, I just liked it more. I thought it was better. I thought it highlighted the shit that I liked more about the band even more. Like, it highlighted Dimebag Daryl and it highlighted Vinnie Paul so much better. So, although the official vote is yes, my asterisk on this is, but you should listen to Cowboys from Hell instead. But the 2 surviving members of Pantera who, yes, are still touring, Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown, are out there touring as Pantera. Congratulations, you are on the list. Phil Anselmo, please don't come find me and beat the living shit out of me for disrespecting you.
Yeah, we're glad you're doing well now, Phil.
Yeah. Glad you're living the high life.
See, that's why my camera's off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, smart.
Oh no, we don't put our faces on YouTube anymore. That did not help to move any units of the podcast. Nobody wanted to see our faces. So just a few things left to do before we get on out of here. First, I just want to say thank you to Eric for hopping on the show. Super appreciate it, man. If you are in the Wilmington, Delaware area, where can they find your music bingo?
So that's going to be every Wednesday night, 9 o'clock at the Copper Dram over in Greenville. It's great drinks, good time. And we play all kinds of music too. I've had metal nights, I've had yacht rock nights, I've gone all across the spectrum.
What really did it for me was when he showed me a Weird Al inspired playlist, and I was like, oh, we're going to be friends. I like that. So yes, I can attest I have spent many an evening at the old watering hole that is the Copper Dram. It's a great place. Eric, thanks for coming on the show. Stick around for a minute because we have a few things left to do, like dive into our listener mailbag. Rob is out this week, but he has passed that mailbag on over to me, and I'm going to reach my clenched fist in there and pull out a few missives. So listener Laura writes in, "Hi complainers. Not sure how it fits with your mission statement, quote unquote, theory of debut records, but I found something weird on track 1 of the very first Sparks LP. The song Wonder Girl has a fart sound at the 1 minute and 50-second mark right after the drum part. It's a little buried in the mix, but now I can't unhear it. Since y'all have brought up the fart sounds on Maggot Brain multiple times and seem to admire Sparks, I thought you needed to know. I'm a pretty big music nerd, but I learn a lot from your show. My pub trivia team had a question a few weeks ago about the band that started as Wicked Lester, and I only got it right because I'd recently heard the Kiss Destroyer episode, so thanks for that. Anyway, thanks for doing what you do. Laura, appreciate the message, and yes, useless pub trivia is a great reason to listen to the show.
And also great ears. Our listeners have the best ears.
Yeah. Like, oh, did you pick up that fart sound off mic? Like, that might have just actually been one of the guys farting. I don't know if that was intentional. All right. The last email that we have is from listener Thomas, who writes, in May 2024, my wife and I went to France for our 25th wedding anniversary. Ooh, fucking la la. Good for you. We didn't get a honeymoon or even a vacation our first 10 years together, so we spent 2 weeks over there driving around and exploring, and we listened to you a lot. My favorite episode we listened to there was the Nena Cherry one. Truly horrible music and a hilarious delivery on your guys' part. It was the theme to driving back into Paris in rush hour, and listening to you guys rightfully savage the album was perfect to juxtapose from the chaos around us. We're going back in September, and I'm actually not going to listen to you until the trip, so we have some saved up. I also wanted to hit on some of the things you said about the South in the Leonard Skinner episode. So, one or more of you expressed some regret about your harshness regarding the region. Don't regret a damn thing. We live in rural North Carolina outside of Asheville. There are a shocking number of people here still litigating the Civil War. Some of the old folks will call it the War of Northern Aggression without a hint of satire or humor. The public schools have no problem completely erasing the barrier between church and state, so don't hesitate to rip the place apart. The Smoky Mountains are beautiful and a magical place, but there are a ton of people here who are the exact opposite. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for writing in and exposing yourself as a liberal living in North Carolina. I don't know, they might be coming after you. You never know. Now that we have done our mailbag, there is just one thing left to do, and that is to bust out the old Albinator and see what we will be listening to next week. It is in the corner. It's been doing that weird arm throwy dance going the entire time. Let's see if I can get it to calm down for a second and spit out an album for us. So without any further ado, drum roll, please. We will be listening to the album is Evol, E-V-O-L, and the band is Sonic Youth. I got to admit, not a fan of Sonic Youth.
Maybe I haven't listened to them enough, but I just don't get it.
Oh, Marty, I thought you were going to be all over this.
No, I don't get it.
Eric, any thoughts on Sonic Youth?
Not really. They come up every now and then. Usually I can get through most of the song.
Usually I can get through most of the song. There we go. There's some high praise. All right. Well, I'm sure that has gotten all of our listeners super excited for next week. Listen to the band Evil, E-V-O-L, by Sonic Youth. For everyone here at 1001 Album Complaints, thank you so much for listening. I have been Tom.
I have been Marty.
And I've been Eric.
Boosh.